The Sweet Track is an ancient causeway in the Somerset Levels, England. It was built in either 3807 or 3806 BC and was the oldest timber trackway discovered in northern Europe until the 2009 discovery of a 6,000-year-old trackway in Plumstead, London. It is now known that the Sweet Track was predominantly built over the course of an earlier structure, the Post Track. The track extended across the now largely drained marsh between what was then an island at West Hay and a ridge of high ground at Shapwick, a distance close to 2,000 metres. The track is one of a network that once crossed the Somerset Levels. Various artefacts, including a jadeite ceremonial axe head, have been found along its length. Construction was of crossed wooden poles, driven into the waterlogged soil to support a walkway that consisted mainly of planks of oak, laid end to end. The track was used for a period of only around 10 years and was then abandoned, probably due to rising water levels. Following its discovery in 1970, most of the track has been left in its original location, with active conservation measures taken, including a water pumping and distribution system to maintain the wood in its damp condition. Some of the track is stored at the British Museum and a reconstruction of a section was built at the Peat Moors Centre near Glastonbury. Location: in the early 4th millennium BC, the track was built between an island at West Hay and a ridge of high ground at Shapwick, close to the River Brew. A group of mounds at West Hay mark the site of prehistoric lake dwellings, which were likely to have been similar to those found in the Iron Age Glastonbury Lake village near Godney, itself built on a morass on an artificial foundation of timber filled with brushwood, bracken, rubble and clay. The remains of similar tracks have been uncovered nearby, connecting settlements on the Peat Bog. They include the Honeygore, Abbott's Way, Bells, Bakers, West Hay, and Niddens trackways. Sites such as the nearby Mere Pool provide evidence that the purpose of these structures was to enable easier travel between the settlements. Investigation of the Mere Pool indicates that it was formed by the encroachment of raised peat bogs around it, particularly during the sub-Atlantic climatic period, and core sampling demonstrates that it is filled with at least 2 meters of detritus mud. The two Mere Lake villages within Mere Pool appear to originate from a collection of structures erected on the surface of the dried peat, such as tents, windbreaks and animal folds. Clay was later spread over the peat, providing raised stands for occupation, industry and movement. And in some areas thicker clay spreads accommodated hearths built of clay or stone. Discovery and study: the track was discovered in 1970 during peat excavations, and is named after its finder, Ray Sweet. The company he worked for, J. Godwin, sent part of a plank from the track to John Coles, an assistant lecturer in archaeology at Cambridge University, who had carried out some excavations on nearby trackways. Coles' interest in the trackways led to the Somerset Levels project, which ran from 1973 to 1989. Funded by various donors including English Heritage, the project undertook a range of local archaeological activities, and established the economic and geographic significance of various trackways from the 3rd and 1st millennium BC. The work of John Coles, Brian E. Coles and the Somerset Levels project was recognized in 1996 when they won the Imperial Chemical Industries Award for the Best Archaeological Project, offering a major contribution to knowledge, and in 2006 with the European Archaeological Heritage Prize. Dendrochronology of the timbers has enabled precise dating of the track, showing it was built in 3807 or 3806 BC. This dating led to claims that the Sweet Track was the oldest roadway in the world, until the discovery in 2009 of a 6,000-year-old trackway in Plumstead, near Belmarsh Prison. Analysis of the Sweet Track's timbers has aided research into Neolithic-era dendrochronology. Comparisons with wood from the River Trent and a submerged forest at Stolford enabled a fuller mapping of the rings, and their relationship with the climate of the period. The wood used to build the track is now classed as bogwood, the name given to wood that for long periods has been buried in peat bogs, and kept from decaying by the acidic and anaerobic bog conditions. Bogwood is usually stained brown by tannins dissolved in the acidic water, and represents an early stage of fossilization. The age of the track prompted large-scale excavations in 1973, funded by the Department of the Environment. In 1973 a jadeite axe head was found alongside the track. It is thought to have been placed there as an offering. One of over 100 similar axe heads found in Britain and Ireland. Its good condition and its precious material suggest that it was a symbolic axe, rather than one used to cut wood. Because of the difficulty of working this material, which was derived from the alpine area of Europe, all the axe heads of this type found in Great Britain are thought to have been non-utilitarian and to have represented some form of currency or be the products of gift exchange. Radiocarbon dating of the peat in which the axe head was discovered suggests that it was deposited in about 3200 BC. Wooden artifacts found at the site include paddles, a dish, arrow shafts, parts of 4 hazel bows, a throwing axe, a U-pins, digging sticks, a mattock, a comb, toggles and a spoon fragment. Finds made from other materials, such as flint flakes, arrowheads and a chipped flint axe have also been made. A geophysical survey of the area in 2008 showed unclear magnetometer data. The wood may be influencing the peat's hydrology, causing the loss or collection of minerals within the pore water and peat matrix. Builders. The community that constructed the trackway were Neolithic farmers who had colonized the area around 3900 BC, and the evidence suggests that they were, by the time of construction, well organized and settled. Before this human incursion, the uplands surrounding the levels were heavily wooded, but local inhabitants began to clear these forests about this time to make way for an economy that was predominantly pastoral with small amounts of cultivation. During the winter, the flooded areas of the levels would have provided this fishing, hunting, foraging and farming community with abundant fish and wildfowl. In the summer, the drier areas provided rich, open grassland for grazing cattle and sheep, reeds, wood and timber for construction, and abundant wild animals, birds, fruit and seeds. The need to reach the islands in the bog was sufficiently pressing for them to mount the enormous communal activity required for the task of stockpiling the timber and building the trackway, presumably when the waters were at their lowest after a dry period. The work required for the construction of the track demonstrates that they had advanced woodworking skills and suggests some differentiation of occupation among the workers. They also appear to have been managing the surrounding woodland for at least 120 years. Construction. Built in 3807 or 3806 BC, the track was a walkway consisting mainly of planks of oak laid end to end, supported by cross pegs of ash, oak and lime, driven into the underlying peat. The planks, which were up to 40 centimeters wide, 3 meters long and less than 5 centimeters thick, were cut from trees up to 400 years old and 1 meter in diameter, felled and split using only stone axes, wooden wedges and mallets. The length, straightness, and lack of forks or branches in the pegs suggest that they were taken from coppiced woodland. Longitudinal log rails up to 6.1 meters long and 7.6 centimeters in diameter, made of mostly hazel and alder, were laid down and held in place with the pegs, which were driven at an angle across the rails and into the peat base of the bog. Notches were then cut into the planks to fit the pegs, and the planks were laid along the X-shapes to form the walkway. In some places a second rail was placed on top of the first one to bring the plank above it level with the rest of the walkway. Some of the planks were then stabilized with slender, vertical wooden pegs driven through holes cut near the end of the planks and into the peat, and sometimes the clay, beneath. At the southern end of the construction, smaller trees were used, and the planks split across the grain to utilize the full diameter of the trunk. Fragments of other tree species including holly, willow, poplar, dogwood, ivy, birch, and apple have also been found. The wetland setting indicates that the track components must have arrived prefabricated, before being assembled on site, although the presence of wood chips and chopped branches indicates that some trimming was performed locally. The track was constructed from about 200,000 kilograms of timber, but Coles estimates that once the materials were transported to the site, 10 men could have assembled it in one day. The sweet track was used only for about 10 years. Rising water levels may have engulfed it, and therefore curtailed its use. The variety of objects found alongside the track suggest that it was in daily use as part of the farming life of the community. Since its discovery, it has been determined that parts of the sweet track were built along the route of an even earlier track, the post track, which was constructed 30 years earlier in 3838 BC. Conservation. Most of the track remains in its original location, which is now within the Shapwick Heath Biological Site of Special Scientific Interest and National Nature Reserve, following purchase of land by the National Heritage Memorial Fund, and installation of a water pumping and distribution system along a 500-meter section. Several hundred meters of the track's length are now being actively conserved. This method of preserving wetland archaeological remains is rare. A 500-meter section, which lies within the land owned by the Nature Conservancy Council, has been surrounded by a clay bank to prevent drainage into surrounding lower peat fields, and water levels are regularly monitored. The viability of this method is demonstrated by comparing it with the nearby Abbott's Way, which has not had similar treatment, and which in 1996 was found to have become dewatered and desiccated. Evaluation and maintenance of water levels in the Shapwick Heath Nature Reserve involves the Nature Conservancy Council, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and the Somerset Levels project. Although the wood recovered from the levels was visually intact, it was extremely degraded and very soft. Where possible, pieces of wood in good condition, or the worked ends of pegs, were taken away and conserved for later analysis. The conservation process involved keeping the wood in heated tanks in a solution of polyethylene glycol by a process of evaporation, gradually replacing the water in the wood with the wax over a period of about 9 months. After this treatment, the wood was removed from the tank and wiped clean. As the wax cooled and hardened, the artifact became firm and could be handled freely. A section of the track on land owned by Fisons was donated to the British Museum in London. Although this short section can be assembled for display purposes, it is currently kept in store, off-site, and under controlled conditions. A reconstructed section was displayed at the Peat Moors Centre near Glastonbury. The centre was run by the Somerset Historic Environment Service, but was closed in October 2009 as a result of budget cuts imposed by Somerset County Council. The main exhibits are extant, but future public access is uncertain. Other samples of the track are held in the Museum of Somerset. Sections of the track have been designated as a scheduled monument, meaning that it is of nationally important, historic structure and archaeological site protected against unauthorized change. These sections are also included in English Heritage's Heritage at Risk Register. Bibliography. Coles, John. Coles, Brian E. Sweet Track to Glastonbury. The Somerset Levels in Prehistory. London. Thames and Hudson. ISBN 0-500-39022-3. Coles, Brian E. Coles, John. Prehistory of the Somerset Levels. Cambridge. Somerset Levels Project. ISBN 0-9507-122-0-5.